Huber, and I'm the CEO of the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin. So welcome to those of you that are here with us in Wauwatosa. And why don't you guys give a big shout out to everybody that's listening in from across the country. Wow. And that's not bad. There's only 2 people in the room. No, actually, there's over 30 people here in the room on a gloomy gray day here in beautiful construction-laden Wauwatosa. But thank you all for coming. We want to welcome our guests that are online, and I want to remind those of you that are online, as well as those of you in the room, that tonight's presentation is being recorded. So both the audio as well as the slides that you'll see tonight will be on the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin website, and that'll be under the Living Donor Program. So you'll have that available to share with friends, family, or to review at your leisure. The folks online will get a survey after the program just asking for your opinion. The folks in the room here have to work very hard to color in little circles on their evaluation here in the room, and we don't let them leave unless they color those in correctly. Anyway, the National Kidney Foundation has the privilege of working with all 3 of the adult transplant centers in the state of Wisconsin. 2 weeks ago, we did a program with our friends at Aurora St. Luke's, and that program was about more of the surgical aspects and the evaluation process for living donation. Tonight's program focuses on one specific topic that seems to plague all of us throughout life. How do I ask about? And so it might be, how do I ask for a raise? How do I ask somebody to marry me? How do I ask someone to go to prom? But tonight's question really is, how do I ask someone to be a living donor? How do I share information? How do I share my story? So we have a panel of incredible speakers, and to start us off, though, an incredible expert. So please welcome Allison.
Thank you. My name is Allison. I am one of the social workers at Fredert in the transplant clinic. I have worked in the clinic for about 2.5 years, and I primarily work with the living donor population, and I see some of the recipients as well, so I get a good mix, and I think this is a wonderful topic to discuss. There's a lot of questions, a lot of emotions that can go into the topic of discussion today. And then after I give a presentation talking about how to ask and what that all entails, I also have a panelist of discussionists here who are a combination of recipients and donors to be able to share their personal experience of how those recipients asked and found those donors, and how the donors decided to donate, and they can all share their story with you. So there's me for those of you who are online. All right, so challenges of asking. I think that's something a lot of recipients struggle with. It stirs up a lot of emotions. There's a lot of reasons why people may be hesitant to ask. They don't want to be a burden on anybody. They don't want to have anybody take any risks on their behalf. It can be very difficult to ask for help, especially if you are used to being an independent person, doing everything on your own. Asking for help is hard. Sometimes people are really concerned about the complications that might arise from surgery and don't want anybody to put themselves in harm's way from that standpoint. There's also potential concerns that the donor might experience financial difficulties related to donation due to time off of work or other scenarios. So we're going to dive in a little deeper for some of those things as we continue the presentation. But first of all, let's kind of start on how to ask. That can be really the biggest and scariest thing to really think about. And so to kind of make it a little simpler, instead of really focusing on what it's like to just say, hey, can you donate a kidney? Just share your story. Make it personal. Just tell them what's been going on. You know, so it's very genuine. It's from the heart. So you can talk to people about how has your illness progressed. You know, what got you to this point that you need a transplant, and how has it impacted your life? That can stir up a lot of emotions. A lot of dialysis is very hard for people to go through, obviously. So everyone experiences a little bit differently, but that is something you can kind of talk about on your journey. Are you still able to work? Have you had to leave a job? Are people, your loved ones helping you more around the house? Are you not able to do as much? You know, so how has that impacted your loved one's life, or, you know, social life, doing activities, vacations, things like that? You know, and also go from a very practical, factual standpoint. What have doctors told you? You know, why do you need a transplant? You know, and again, keep it real, keep it genuine, really coming from the heart, just telling your story as it is. Can make things a little simpler. And who to ask? Ask everyone. As you will find out when we have our panelists up here, sometimes you're not able to ask, or family can't donate. So family is definitely the #1 place to start, but you don't need to be a family member in order to be a donor. So family, friends, co-workers, people in community organizations, so any clubs that you might be involved in, you know, sporting events, if you belong to, you know, any bowling leagues or anything like that. Your faith community, church can be a great place to get the word out and ask, having people pray for you. Or if they can't donate, ask them to ask on your behalf. So it'll kind of keep spreading that word further and further and further, not necessarily to people you know. As somebody who meets most of the potential donors when they come in for their evaluations, it's amazing to me whenever I ask about how do you know the recipient. And sometimes it's family, and sometimes it's well, I read about this on Facebook, or, you know, I just heard about this person in church. It doesn't need to be a close friend or family member. Obviously, those are the places to start, but get the word spread out if family and friends aren't able to donate or not interested in donation. So that can sound really hard. So maybe when you're telling your story, start by writing it down, making it a little bit easier so you don't have to remember all of those things that we talked about of how is it affecting you, what have doctors told you. Write it down step by step. How do you want to share your story? If it's difficult to tell people in person, send letters. Ask your family and your loved ones to be able to help share your story and spread the word. When it's written out, it's really easy to pass those messages along to other people. Using social media, as I said, Facebook and other different forms of posting can get that word out, and it's amazing what it can do and how people hear those stories and are moved and touched and want to help out. So you can always also make flyers, pass them out at community events, parks, you know, state fair, wherever you might be. You never know who's going to see that flyer, pick it up. there's a lot of different options out there. So I know of someone who kind of put signs out on there, put it on their car, I want, I am in need of a kidney, and put the living donor phone number on there for them to call and get information if anyone was interested. There's all sorts of fun and creative ideas that you can get to just get that word out. So I also want to talk about myths about donation, because I think myths can prevent people from asking other people about donation, as well as disinterest in the message. So as I mentioned, only family members can donate is a huge myth. There's a lot of people who can donate. The relationship is not important. Blood type isn't even really all that important anymore because of other methods that they have used. In the way donation works, you do have to have a blood match to donate from one person to the next, but they have exchange programs where if you are not able to donate to your intended recipient because your blood types don't match, they can put you into this exchange program, and there's several different exchange programs that can be local and nationwide to be able to find other pairs who you can match up with. So that way, if your recipient can't take your kidney because of blood type, there's somebody else out there that can give to you, and you can give back to them, and exchange kidneys that way. So you're still helping on behalf of the person you are interested in donating to, but it just doesn't go directly to them, but they still get a good kidney that's going to help them in their quality of life long term. They also have desensitization programs as well, where they can do certain treatments with the recipients to make that their blood types, or not the blood types, but the match a little bit better. I am a social worker. I am not a medical provider, so I do apologize that I'm not able to give you all of the specific details on that, but really the important part of the message is to make sure that everyone's aware there are multiple different options out there to make people be donors, even if there's not a straight family relation or blood match. So another myth is that donors need to change their lifestyle after donation. There is a healing and recovery process that goes involved, just like most surgeries, where donors are on a lifting restriction for a short time while their incisions are healing. But after that, the goal is to have a normal life. It shouldn't be impacted, and keep on doing your same activities, hobbies, interests. Medical team might tell you to maybe do a little less high-risk activities just to make sure you're taking care of the one kidney you have left. So, they might look a little cautiously at you if you're telling you to go, if you're wanting to go skydiving or things like that. But for the most part, we want you to continue enjoying life. Obviously, we want everyone, recipients and donors, to have a good quality of life after surgery, and that means doing all the activities that you love. So you can resume the sports, exercises, physical activity. If you are extremely active, like running marathons or, a Taekwondo instructor, it might take you a little bit to get you back to that point. You have to slowly work your way up, but it's definitely something you'll be able to resume doing. There's no lifelong medications that donors need to take. Recipients, there are, but for donors, there's nothing. So I think as far as medications are concerned for the donor side, they just ask you to stay away from NSAIDs because that can promote kidney failure. So that's really the only medication alteration to donors. You know, some people think surgery includes a really complicated recovery. Years ago, it did. Now most surgery is done laparoscopically, so surgery recovery is pretty minimal. Most people are in the hospital 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 or 5, but mostly it's 2 to 3 for most donors. And again, temporary restrictions during that recovery period. So a lifting restriction, a driving restriction while you're on pain medications, just like most general surgery. There's really not any additional risks to donation, other surgical risks, other than any regular outpatient surgery that people have on a regular basis. So helping dispel those myths can be one way to help people get interested in donation. So you also want to talk about the positive aspects of donation, create some interest, talk about the risks and benefits of donation. So there are better outcomes for the recipient when they get a living donor versus a deceased donor. The waiting time can be decreased. Most people who are waiting for deceased donors, it all depends center to center, but from what I hear, it can average between 5 and 10 years depending on the center that you're at. And obviously that's just an average. There's a lot of different reasons on the wait list on why it could be shorter or longer. But a lot of people don't want to wait 5 to 10 years in order to get their transplant. And living donation is really the only way to confirm that you don't have to wait that long. So there's also a comprehensive assessment for the donor. For those of you in the room that are actively listed for a kidney transplant, if you remember the full evaluation and assessment that you had gone through, all the medical testing, meeting with a ton of different people in the transplant center, the donors get a very similar assessment as the recipients because we want to make sure that we're not doing any harm to any potential donor. We want to make sure they're healthy and the risks of donation are minimized as much as possible. And it's also a scheduled surgery, and so from both the recipient and on the donor behalf, if there are certain things going on in your life, like a wedding or a already planned vacation, as it is a planned surgery, that's something that the transplant center can work around and make your recovery period at more of a convenient time for both of you. Whereas obviously with a deceased donor, you are really at the discretion of when you get that phone call from your transplant team saying, this is, you know, we've got a kidney for you, get here and let's go.
Allison, can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
You have to repeat them because I can't turn myself on.
Okay.
So what is it that you said people were supposed to avoid after donating a kidney?
Right. One of the online recipient or listeners asked what donors needed to avoid after surgery. And so I said NSAIDs, which is like your ibuprofen. So it's just over-the-counter pain medications to because those can cause kidney failure. And if you are a donor, you go through the evaluation process, the team will be giving you all of that information during your assessment. Was there another question?
No, well, there's a question from a volunteer in the room. So you still have to repeat it though.
Yep.
What does laparoscopic mean?
Okay, so I was just asked what a laparoscopic surgery is. Laparoscopic surgery means more a very small incision versus cutting you wide open. So the surgeons use a small incisions, a little bit of medical equipment to that is really tiny to be able to, like small scissors and cameras and flashlights that are very tiny that they can see everything. And so the surgery is very small. So your incision when you are a donor is about 4 or 5 inches near your belly button. And then you have 2 very, very small incisions on your side, whatever side they take the kidney from, for those little devices, the scissors and camera and everything, so that the doctors can get your kidney out safely. So I hope that answered. Good. I'm glad you answered your question. All right. Oh, sure. You know what? I can't answer that question because I'm not a doctor. Oh, so the question was, if you have an ostomy, can that create problems for the recipient? So as I'm a social worker and not a doctor or a nurse, I don't want to answer that question because I don't want to speak outside my scope of expertise. But that is a good question. So I also put, and also as you're talking and having this conversation with people about needing a kidney, let them know where they can get more information. So you don't have to share all this information with them. You don't need to know all the information. So know your transplant center, connect them to the living donor team. They'll be able to answer a lot of questions already. And you can also go to kidney.org where they have a ton of wonderful information about donation as well. And so one thing also, when you talk about the transplant center, make sure as a recipient you're sending them to your transplant center. So let them know whether, if you're local, so if it's Frederick, St. Luke's, Madison, make sure you're sending them to the right place. So another way to help the conversation go along is really think about the big picture. So kind of what this means is kind of take the focus off you as the recipient a little bit, because donation, it does help you in all of the ways that we've been discussing, but it helps a lot of other people, not just you. So kind of learning some of the statistics can help show that, because as over 1,000 people nationwide are waiting for kidneys and over 1,900 just in Wisconsin alone. And so when you are able to, when people are able to donate with a live donation, that means that there's one less person waiting for a deceased donor. And there are sometimes, when I was talking about those paired exchange programs, sometimes it's not just 2 sets of donor and recipients that match each other. It can happen that way, but sometimes one donation in that right match can actually impact, and you could have, and having the right match end up having 50 people get transplanted because it all just makes like a chain of people who match and who need it. So donation does not just help one person, it helps several. So kind of taking it a look at that way, not only do you help me, but you help other people who are waiting for on the list as well. And be enthusiastic about how donation can help others. I said it kind of takes, if you're having difficulty asking for her help and making it all about you, this is one way to turn the focus away from you a little bit. So you also want to make sure that you're not pressuring anybody to donate. We want to make sure when people are deciding to be donors that they're doing so because they genuinely want to help you or whoever they may be donating to. So have the discussion as just information sharing. Oh, I'm in need of a kidney. Here's some information about donation. If this is something you want to do, it's 100% your decision. I'm not going to be upset if you decide not to do it. But if you'd like to start, here's information. And let them know that you'll be comfortable with any decision. I think it's normal if you hear somebody who is thinking about donation, decides not to, or decides they can't. I think it's just human for us to have a little bit of sadness or disappointment. But again, there could be several reasons that you're not aware of why they're unable or not willing to donate. And we want to obviously make sure when people donate, we don't want anyone to regret their decision. And we want it to be in their best interest as well as yours as the recipients. And so, I think another thing to think about when you're asking about how, who to ask, how to ask, you need to remember why people want to donate. They love you. They want to keep you around. They want to give you a better quality of life, a longer life. And sometimes that can kind of be hard for recipients to think about. Again, because many times I don't want them to risk. I don't want them to potentially have complications or end up where I am at. Again, that's the whole reason for this comprehensive assessment that they go through as donors, is really to minimize all of those risks. But they are being selfish. They want to keep you around. Even for people who may not have such a strong relationship with you, those who are acquaintances, or I said, finding somebody on Facebook. Many people are just genuinely helpful people. They want to help somebody. I hear a lot of times, well, I've got 2 kidneys. I'm healthy. I don't need both my kidneys. So if I can help somebody by sharing a kidney, why not? Yes.
On that exact note, how do you get somebody who says that same line, oh, I got 2, that sounds like they might be interested, to pushing them towards okay, well, go get the information, call without putting pressure on them?
So give them the information, let them know who to call, how to call. Other than giving them the phone number or giving them some of the information, I know at Freighter we have donor packets that give a lot of educational materials. So if that's something you need, you can ask your transplant team if there's educational materials you can give to potential donors. But other than that, that's really all you can do.
I mean, a lot of people also might bring people to this type of a session, or a lot of people encourage people just to call the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, because we do work with all of the transplant centers, and sometimes because we're Switzerland,
Yeah.
as I usually say, friends all transplant centers. So our job is just to kind of help people formulate questions. So we're always a resource to support you as well as anybody that is looking for more information.
Thank you, Cindy.
You don't have to repeat all that, I think.
Perfect. All right. Let's see, I think we covered all of that. All right, before I bring up the panelists, does anyone have any questions about anything that I had discussed? Yes.
I have a question. When you talk about the chain of donating kidneys, so now they're all not in one city. People, let's see. So just like a heart transplant, you can put that kidney on ice and ship it across the country.
Absolutely. To me, especially, it just amazes me kind of the orchestra that goes on when at least any transplant, whether it's a live donation, paired exchange, deceased donation, it is such kind of an orchestrated event. There's so many different pieces that go into it, so many different players, but they have it all worked out and everything gets scheduled. All, you know, so if there are, in those cases, multiple transplant centers being involved in having all of these surgeries done, they know exactly when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. So, because they obviously, they want those kidneys out of the body for as little amount of time as possible. So they schedule it and orchestrate it, and it just amazes me how complex these situations can get, but they make it work. It's a lot of teamwork. Yes.
You mentioned that about blood type match, but what are the other factors when you look at a donor and a potential match? Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yes. Okay, so she asked what are the other potential things they look at for matches with a donor. Are you talking more like the physical aspects, or so size can play a part? Because obviously if you're going to be getting a kidney from a really big person and you're really small, we want to make sure that kidney is going to fit in you okay, and going to be able to work well and function with your body the way it is. They look at blood type, your sensitivity, because recipients, the more antibodies that they have, that can impact their ability to accept organs from different people. I said, I'm not a nurse, so I can't go into more detail than that. And they want to make sure that donors are physically healthy. So healthy kidneys, healthy body. So sometimes BMI can play a role just as far as donation in general, not necessarily from the match perspective, because again, any medical complications and, you know, from a health standpoint, they want to make sure they're eliminating all of those risks from a surgical standpoint, as well as you know, if they feel that you're going to, as a donor, are going to need both kidneys in the future with potential health issues, they're going to want to make sure those donors who need both their kidneys don't donate. So that way they're not ending up needing a transplant someday.
Can you tell us what BMI stands for?
Oh, so I was asked what BMI stands for. It's body mass index. It's what medical providers use to kind of figure out, they kind of take your height, your weight, and if the proportions are too far off in either direction, the team might tell you to either lose weight or put some weight on. They want you kind of at a healthy standpoint. Yes?
Are there any age restrictions for donors?
So I was just asked if there's age restrictions for donation. At Freighter, there is not. They really take a look at what your general health is. So the older you get, tend to have more health issues as you age. So the older you get, it could be a little less likely you may be able to donate. But if you are really healthy, there will probably be a point, but they would take a look overall before they would say no.
In regards to that, are there any age restrictions about getting it?
So I was just asked about age restrictions for recipients, and again, no, it really depends on your overall health and what they want to take a look at, what your chances are of being able not only to recover well from surgery and going through a transplant and the recovery, but also kind of having a good quality of life afterwards.
Or did you ask for, is there an age for someone to be a living donor, like a lower age? Can I be 16 and be a donor?
So as you have you have to be at least 18 to be a donor. Any other questions? All right, well then I'm going to have our panelists come up. These are the true experts in the room because they have actually been through all of these experiences. So come on up. I do apologize. One of our donors did not, or one of our recipients did not show up tonight. So I talked to her yesterday. She said she was coming, so I'm hoping that everything is okay with her. So you guys can have a seat wherever you would like. All right. And so let me introduce you. This is Jeff. So he is a donor. So he donated to Kathy, who is unfortunately not here tonight. So he's going to have to try his best to share her side of the story. And Monica is a kidney recipient, and her donor, Karen. So I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and being willing to share your story. So I guess first of all, if you could just generally tell everyone a little bit about your stories. So if anyone in particular would like to start?
I'll start.
It's pretty
Oh,
good.
that's
Just
not-
It's
tell
pretty
us I
good.
had to turn you off so it doesn't sound too echoey, but you should just be able to talk in your normal voice,
Oh, I'm just, okay. All right.
a big room voice.
You need the back to hear you.
All right. If you can't hear me in the very back, please let me know. My name is Monica Ashuri. I am from Tanzania, East Africa. And you can just tell how blessed I am to be halfway around the world in a country where I know nobody and be able to get a life donor. My kidney problem did not come from diabetes or high blood pressure. Those are the more standard illnesses that drive people to getting kidney disease or kidney failure. Mine was lupus. Lupus is an autoimmune disease, and it was not diagnosed early. I did not know. I had never heard before. So I believe I had lupus since 2005, given the symptoms that I had. And I was not diagnosed until August of 2009. So at the time I was diagnosed, the lupus had eaten 80% of my kidney. And first of all, when I was told you have lupus, I was really, my question to the doctor was, what is lupus? And eventually I was told what that was. And I still had to do a lot of research to understand. So that's how I got the kidney problem. Is that good enough?
So how did you get Karen, or how did you and Karen end up?
Okay. I didn't realize that I was supposed to continue with that.
I can jump in anytime, whenever you're ready.
I didn't realize I was supposed to continue with the story. But before I continue with my story, I wanted to share, if you don't mind, for you who are people of faith. In a Christian faith, we read the Bible. That's our holy book. So there are two verses that talk about asking. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. That's the New International Version. The New Living Translation says, keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be opened. So, even though I grew up in a Christian family, I am practicing devout Christian myself. I'm born again Christian. These words really did not come. I remember them all the time, but it was very, very difficult to ask, just as she was explaining. So for a long time I thought, well, this is it for me because I'm far away from home. I cannot travel sick. If I ask, I won't get it. But then I go back and read those words, or they play in my head that you have to ask. It was just difficult to ask. It's you had, first of all, you're saying, okay, what if this people that you ask says no? And then you'll be discouraged to continue to ask. And what if people will get sick themselves? Then you have to live with that guilty all your life. So I kept quiet. I was just being going about my everyday thing and getting really, really sick. Um, I met Karen at Milwaukee Lutheran High School. Her son and my son went to Milwaukee Lutheran High School. At Milwaukee Lutheran High School, we had a prayer group, and every Friday at 8 o'clock during the school year, this group called Moms and Prayers will get together and pray for the school. And the school will give us different requests from the staff, from the students, and then we'll read our Bible and we'll pray. So that's where I met Karen the first time. And when I met her, I was just kind of finishing up my chemotherapy because my lupus was so severe. And as you know, lupus does not have cure, or it's, it's treated by borrowed medications from other illnesses. So because mine was severe, so they had to treat me like a cancer patient. So I had to go through chemotherapy, and the chemotherapy was very, very brutal. It took all my hair until I looked like it was just, I was bald. And so I'll wear a wig, and the wig will, I don't mean an offense, but it was just so hard, and then I'll be so congested. And then I said, well, I'm just trying to wear a headband. That was hard as well. So, and I was hiding from my son. And so that's the time I really met. I was so, so down, so sick, but I was still going to this prayer group. And who knew that in that prayer group, my life saving will come from there. That's how
Can I jump in?
met Kyle.
Can I jump in now? We met actually about a month, it sounds like, after you were diagnosed with a kidney failure, which I didn't really know that. I happen to be a dietitian at the VA hospital. I'm a renal dietitian. I work in dialysis. I work with pre-dialysis patients, so I really do have an understanding of what these patients go through. And so I also had probably a better understanding than most people about the whole transplant process just from listening over and over to that being told from doctor to patient, and I'm kind of involved in that conversation sometimes. So actually Monica never asked me. I actually told her I would like to consider doing that. And so we're talking about not pressuring the person. It was more me pressuring Monica to say, you know, because it started out for me as just kind of a fantasy to think. I'm watching her getting thinner and thinner and weaker. And there are pictures with her face kind of looking puffy, which might have been fluid. Her eyes look tired. and I know what these patients go through, and so I thought to myself, that would be so cool. It's highly unlikely because we are not exactly blood related, but I just thought, well, I know about the paired donor possibilities, so I thought, well, that's a possibility, but I would love to give this a try. So it was exciting to me to just kind of think about that possibility.
So one day we were we were at a gala. I belong to a group of women. It's called the Milwaukee African Women Association. And every year we'll do a fundraising to help people back in Africa. We'll help different causes. So we were sitting at the table, and from nowhere, Karen asked me, what type of blood are you? What's your blood type? And I said, I'm O plus. She said, damn it. And I said,
no, I did not say that. I meant to darn.
Whatever that was. But it was like meaning, oh no, you know. And then I said, what's your blood type? She said, I'm A plus.
A positive.
Oh, yeah. So both of us thought, well, this is not gonna work. So it just kind of left like that. So as she said, I did not ask other people either. I was just so either shy. The fact that I'm a foreigner made it really, really difficult. I was like, I don't know, because my family could not have come here. I have a son whose father has a grandfather died of cancer. So we knew that that's not going to happen, even though he was willing. Actually, 4 people, 3 people, the 4th one, including Karen, were willing to help. And I was really kind of pushing them away. One of them actually registered and tried the process to see. She was kind of going behind my back, and apparently she did not qualify. But going back to Karen's story, so then every now and then she'll ask me, so what's going on? And I said, well, now I'm doing dialysis. What's going on? Or now I'm going through evaluation, because even the evaluation took so long. Don't get for granted being American. For me, when I wanted really to be evaluated for transplant, it wasn't possible because I was here on a work visa, and that's a visa given to foreigners with special skills, and I could not qualify for certain things. So I just had to wait until I was able, and the waiting period is what landed me in doing dialysis the first time. But even that, I was fortunate to do dialysis only for 14 months. And then I was able to receive the kidney. So at that time, I'm waiting and I'm answering questions from Karen all the time. She'll come to my house and Summer bring produce, and then she'll say, what's going on? So one day I said, oh, now they have asked me, I'm going actually through evaluation. And this is what she said, believe me. She said, you have my kidney. So I looked at her, I said, what? And then she had a friend with her. They had come to my house. Then her friend, they had their $2. They needed a rest from a different country. So I was happy to provide for them. But her friend asked her, why are you doing this? And Karen said, I'm doing it for one reason. First of all, she said, I know if I was in her shoes, she'll do the same thing. But the most important thing, I am doing this so that she can be able to do the things that God created her to do. So I know how being in this world, we all have skills and talents, the gifts that God has given us. So Karen wanted me to be able to do what God put me on this earth to do, but being sick the way I was, I could not do. So that's what she answered to the lady. And to be honest, that was very, very touching. I was just speechless. That's how I got my kidney. And to this day, I really still feel I am so blessed. Um, the fact that I'm from somewhere else, the fact that you can look at me and Karen, there's no way. Um, and the fact that even though blood type wasn't the same, but still things worked for me. So that itself is a blessing. So when I had my, after I had my transplant, people from home would call and then they had no clue what it was. So even if I was home, probably the chances that I would have died. Because first of all, people are not doing transplant over there. You have to go to a different country, mostly in India. So they asked me, oh, how did that happen? So I explained. And the question was, oh, so did she give you both kidneys? And I said, no, just one. If she gave me two kidneys, that means she'll die.
Or go on dialysis.
Oh, or go on dialysis. And then they said, is she Mzungu? Mzungu means is she white person, Caucasian person, or black? And I said, oh, she's a Caucasian, she's a white person, she's Mzungu. And they said, oh, so after a while you're going to be white yourself. So it was that level of ignorance because that thing, such thing just doesn't happen over there. That's how blessed I feel. And since yesterday was exactly 8 months since I received my kidney.
July.
Thank you.
2016.
Yeah, my just, it's a gift of life. So it was another chance of living, and I have no words to explain my gratitude before God or to her for just giving me this chance, second chance of living, because even the dialysis itself for me, it was very, very hard. I wish I could have done it before I went into dialysis, but that didn't happen. So even the 14 months of dialysis for me was very, very hard. And I always tell people that if you're able to do before, you might consider doing it before you go into dialysis, because there's a lot. And one of the things that I'm left to remember about my dialysis is this color that I didn't have before because of infiltration. I had a surgery to put a fistula there, and my vein was too deep, so they had to open my arm from here all the way to the armpit to pull the vein up so they can align with the fistula. So it's a lot. While I was there one day, things happened. I actually had a minor stroke, and I had to end up in the hospital. So you can die and just going to dialysis, and it gives you a little quality of life. But to be honest with you, transplant is way, way better to do than to be on dialysis. So I'm doing well, very well, and I'm always, when I get up in the morning, I say, thank God for the gift of life, thank God for Karen, and thank God for my doctors and everybody. I mean, it's like you're full of gratitude, and then after that, the transplant, it's like every petty things, everything that happened in life or this and that, it becomes real minor because you saw death and then you came out of it, and then your life is a life of gratitude than having a grudge with this person, not talking to this person, fussing about small things. somebody caught you on the road and then you go like, "Ugh," they become minor. They don't count anything.
I'm going to add one thing really quick. One thing we tell our dialysis patients at the VA is that your life will be on dialysis. Your life with a transplant will be longer and better versus staying on dialysis because of a lot of reasons. But so we really expect our patients to be advocates for themselves and make phone calls and keep appointments and take care of themselves and look at their bad habits and kind of be their own advocates because their life will be longer and better with a transplant versus being on dialysis.
So I'm going to let Kathy and Jeff introduce themselves and share their story a little bit, and then we can open up to any questions. But the two of you want to share a little bit about your story as well?
Sure. You want to start, Kathy, or you want me to?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
I can
you
do
go.
it quick. Both of us belong to the same church. And at the time, I was doing volunteer work on Saturdays. And Jeff and his wife were there also. And I knew his wife's birthday was coming up. I thought when he asked me if I was taking the stuff up front, I thought, ooh, I'm going to get an invitation to a party. And so we walk out of the office. We're walking to the front. 2 weeks prior to that, I should say, the one question I asked everybody when they asked about how I was doing on dialysis, I said, da, 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 da. And then I said, do you have a spare? And I did that to him. And so we're walking along and he goes, yeah, the question I wanted to ask you, and I'm thinking invitation to her party. And he goes, I want to give you a kidney. I stopped dead in my tracks and said, say what? And he was, yeah, I decided, I read the Bible and I did this and that and talked to my doctor and whatever, and I want to give you a kidney. He walked a few feet in front of me and I looked up and I go, are you for real? And I brought him in the donation papers, and it took, about 9 months or so of testing. And we had our surgeries on December 17th, 1914. It was
2014.
amazing. This man is amazing. And the only thing I was upset about is 2 days later he was going home. Because he takes good care of himself. I was there a little longer, and we got to meet the couple that we exchanged with that Friday because they were there from Illinois. And amazing couple. She's young. She's got a nice husband, 2 beautiful daughters. So I was glad that God was able to help her to be around a while.
Yeah.
It was very much a God experience.
Yeah, it was a paired exchange. And yeah, kind of. So from my side of it, I knew for a good while that Kathy was on dialysis, and so I would ask her when I saw you, like the time you're talking about, how is it going? And prior to that, you would kind of describe, oh, it's really hard. In fact, I remember you saying that a good day, I'll go in for dialysis in the morning, and a good day, I'm back up for supper, and a bad day, I don't even get up for supper. And and so I kind of knew what you were going through. The one day I asked you, and you made that kind of added, oh, do you have a spare kidney? And you did it in such a way, Allison was talking in her presentation about no pressure. There was no pressure at all. You didn't really expect me to even respond to that. And but that night, it just, I felt convicted. And I said something to my wife. And she right away was very supportive, and I started praying about it, and I just kept getting one answer that, this is someone who's deserving. I can help. In fact, there's I should have checked the reference. There's a verse in the Bible about, if you know somebody who is deserving and it's in your power to act, then act and help them. And so that was the answer I got to my prayer. A couple of weeks later, you were describing how I decided to just tell you when I saw you on that Saturday. And so it worked out. We did a paired exchange, and we got to help out another couple in the process. So that's our story.
Before I ask any follow-up questions, does anybody else have any questions?
Kathleen, can you tell us how you lost your kidney function?
And what is these?
Oh, he asked how you lost your kidney function.
My ex-husband divorced me and I didn't have any insurance for years. I worked as a waitress and stuff. And then I'd get insurance here and go get checked out. Basically raising 3 kids on your own creates high blood pressure. And that's what my kidney failed from.
So you said you had a period exchange. Your donor and recipient, were they both at greater at the time of the transplant, or did the recovery and transplant happen at another transplant center?
So for those of you online, we just got asked for Kathy and Jeff with the paired exchange were the couple from the paired exchange at Fredert.
Yeah, they were at Fredert, and so it was just the 4 of us, 2 recipients, 2 donors, and the other pair were husband and wife.
Wait a minute. There's only one hospital in Milwaukee and we're there.
I have a medical question. What was your GFR when you went on dialysis? Your glomerular filtration rate?
I am hard of hearing, so.
What was your glomerular filtration rate? How low was it to make you go on dialysis? And maybe the nurse knows.
What was your GFR when you started dialysis? Do you?
Oh, when you start dialysis? 5, stage 5.
Went down that
Yeah.
low. Oh,
Stage 5, typically, I'm just saying typically, it's under 10.
Under 10.
I'm a dietitian, I'm not a doctor. I'm a dietitian.
Mine was 9.
9. And my husband was 7. He's been on dialysis for a year and a half. So I mean, for people who don't know what a GFR is, I guess it's supposed to be 60 or greater for
When you're healthy.
when you're healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share my situation. I've been on home hemo now for almost 5 years. And my GFR was about 9, and creatinine was probably in the upper 6s when I started home hemo training. I wasn't sick enough to actually, require dialysis at that point, but I had a training spot and I got into it right away. I have polycystic kidney disease, so I continue to produce urine. That kind of gives me a bit of an edge. So I never got really, continue to work full time, and I've been listed for two programs now, UW, and I just switched over from St. Louis to Frederick.
That's my husband took that polycystic kidney. He's on stage 5. He got here and everything.
Yep.
But he can't work, but we're on here, Frederick and Madison too. They told us to get on hold.
But I suspect my GFR probably could have gotten down to around maybe a 6 before I started. I didn't have any of the physical symptoms of cancer at that point.
He's on peritoneal home dialysis. Much better.
When I started, of course, one of the things that I do is start the dialysis relatively slowly, the detoxification process, because otherwise it would be a shock to my system. I'd actually become accustomed to that level of toxicity in my blood.
So do we have any other questions for our panelists?
I was just curious on the last 2, you donated for, how long were you on dialysis before you had a transplant?
How long were you on dialysis before you?
I believe it was 1 year, 9 months.
How long did it take you to feel better after?
For what?
surgery?
How long did it take for you to feel better after surgery, like transplant?
Could you
After
tell
the
immediately
transplant?
As soon as your kidney was working that you felt much better, other than the incision?
Well, actually, I was told, or I had watched something on TV that of a woman who had the transplant, and 5 or 6 days later, she was leaving the hospital, and she danced out of her room. And I was like, oh. I didn't dance until they took all the stuff off of me about 2 weeks later. But I did dance.
How about you, Monica?
Well, first of all, you heard about, I wanted to say something. You heard about paired exchange. That's unique, and ours was unique as well. We had different blood type. For us, we passed
Passed all the testing.
we passed all the tests. So we did the diet. And I had to go through a process called plasmapheresis for 10 days. I got a treatment to be able to accept her kidney, and it has not, my body has not rejected her kidney.
Cool thing about in the hospital, the very first day, that kidney produced 17 liters of fluid, of urine. So.
Yeah, they wrote on my 15 liters, and I was like, whoa, everybody was saying, this is a super kidney, you have a super kidney. And I said, yeah, my sister had flown from my home country of Tanzania here, and I said, yeah, it's a white person's kidney. So I'm joking about it.
And let me just say, for me, as a donor, my life is no different. Everything that way works exactly the same. I notice nothing different, but it's been really cool to watch her life improve so dramatically. And so I get to keep living my life normally, and she gets to live a much better life. It's really cool.
There's a question online that's kind of like generalizing that. So for you and for Jeff, for the donors, how has your life changed? Any changes in lifestyle? Any complications? How are you feeling? And I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, like I said, I had a little bit of a blood pressure problem, just a little bit, and it wasn't too much of a problem. Otherwise, they would never have accepted me. I didn't need any medications. So for me, my life is, I need to make sure I stay hydrated. I tend not to want to drink a lot of fluids, but so I need to make sure I work on that. And then I need to do lots of things to make sure my blood pressure stays in good control. I need to eat a good health. All the things I tell my patients as a dietitian, I need to do that myself. I need to eat well. I need to watch my salt. I need to exercise. All the good lifestyle things that I should be doing anyway. I've got more motivation because I know I need to keep that one kidney healthy.
And I guess I would start by explaining that before the donation, I'm a little bit overweight, but I exercise 3 times a week. And so I was doing that prior to the donation, and it took me about 6 weeks to get back to working out and ramped up. We happen to have a friend who just by chance was born with 1 kidney rather than 2. And so he has always had to do the same types of things that we have to do as donors. He has to avoid the NSAIDs like ibuprofen and Motrin, and just be careful about dangerous activities. That's about it. I don't notice anything because of it. It's just smart to avoid the NSAIDs that could damage the 1 kidney you have left. So that's it. I was out of the hospital in 2 days and got back to work.
That was 3 weeks off of work.
As a donor, don't you have to, only having 1 kidney, don't you have to watch your protein input? Because protein can be damaging to a kidney.
Yeah, actually that's true. I talked to my pre-dialysis patients about not overdoing protein because most people eat way more than their bodies require. So I always like to talk about the healthy plate. 1/4 of the plate is meat, 1/4 of the plate is starch, 1/2 your plate is vegetables. That's good advice for a kidney pre-dialysis and post-transplant. For all of us, it's good advice.
Oh,
I have a question. I'm a stage 4, and I'm also pre-diabetic. And one of the issues I had a problem with is balancing the diet, because I took a workshop through the YMCA on diet, pre-diabetic, and then the information I got on the kidney diet, it was conflicting. It's a conflict. Like one said eat wheat, the other one said don't eat wheat. One said eat banana, and the other one said don't eat banana. How do you balance those two?
I have to put my dietitian hat on now. Yeah, we can talk afterwards, but just in general, just want to ask lots of questions, be an advocate for yourself, make sure that the people you're talking to can clarify. If somebody gives a conflicting information, you can ask that person directly, or make sure you're asking the questions and getting them answered to your satisfaction. That's my big advice.
I would also suggest see if there's a dietitian in your nephrology office. At Freighter, the nephrology and transplant clinic are connected. And so we have a dietitian in the office. So if you ask the nurse or the doctor, I'd like to talk to a dietitian about questions. If she's available, she can come and see you or schedule a time to meet with you.
I have two questions for you ladies. One is, I guess, what was the chance they told you that you could give her the kidney directly? Did they say it was like extremely slim?
I don't know that we were ever given odds about how that would work. I think they work up donor and recipient completely separate. In fact, the teams do not share anything. We talked all the time, but the teams can't share any information about, they couldn't tell me about Monica, they couldn't tell Monica about me. So they really couldn't speak to that at all. And I really myself thought it was a huge long shot because I'm type A. I shouldn't, if it was blood donation, I couldn't give my blood to her. It's incompatible, but it was kind of a shock and surprise. I was fully expecting we would be told it would be a paired donation. It made it much easier for both of us to be able to schedule a direct donation. And, now I know where my kidney is all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the end, when I went to see my nephrologist and the surgeon, they said you have the choice of doing both, paired exchange and direct. And so I asked them, I said, as doctors, what do you recommend? I mean, I just said from the heart because you know better than I do. And they said, we have more control of you with the direct. You hear, we watch, we monitor. But they gave me all the information, all the statistics, and all the successes they have had. They told me actually Japan has been doing it since 1986. So that's something really unique. So it was even beautiful to see your plasma being removed in an infusion center, and then you're giving this infused, really expensive and precious, valueless plasma. And then you live there, you feel really good. So even the 10 days of treatment before dialysis, before the transplant, it was very beautiful.
Oh, she had one more question.
And it was for you. Did they tell you? I'm sorry, this was kind of a grim question, but did they tell you that your second kidney, the donated kidney, was at risk because you had lupus?
No, but I was just told to. I'll put that this way. They did not tell me that because when I was doing dialysis, even though it was dialysis, it wasn't just helping me to feel better. Actually, when you're on dialysis and you're a lupus patient, 90% of your lupus kind of just disappeared. So by the time I was going for transplant, my lupus was on remission, and there has been on remission since then to this day. So my rheumatologist is here. Rheumatologists are the people that treat people with lupus. So it's here at Freighter, my nephrologist here, everybody's here. So there was so much communication. There was a time there was this, they were pulling each other. Somebody said, the nephrologist said, we have to take you off lupus medication for 3 months and see how you will do without lupus medication. The rheumatologist is saying, why risk to make this up? Well, why risk for lupus flare up? So they went for a long time pulling themselves, and I was there in the middle just waiting whatever they're going to say. And so the day I got the phone call that you qualify, now you can look for a donor, I was really jumping up and down. So I go through evaluation, and then in the middle, I had traveled to my home country and did dialysis over there. And they say, well, since you did dialysis outside the country, you have to go through the infectious disease for for checkup to make sure that you did not contract anything out there. So you have to have a clean bill as far as your health is concerned. But for the lupus, yeah, that was a hold for a long time. They were just pulling each other.
I just had a question of Jeff and Monica. How did y'all struggle with the psychological part once you found out that you needed kidney donation? Because I know I've struggled with it mentally about, hey, I need this, and I thought I was healthy and everything until I got told I needed a double kidney transplant. And then for me, it's been a real struggle internally, I still struggle with that. How did y'all deal with the psychological dimension of knowing you need a kidney transplant?
I was blessed by two things. One, I have a very good support system. Yes, I'm far away from home, just me and my son here in America. And I have two cousins in Boston. That's about it. But my church family, my Bible study, my friends, surrounded with really amazing, wonderful people. That's one. And the biggest of them all is actually my faith in God. That's the only thing that really saw me through. So I do not recall a time when I sat down and did like this, or as many people say, a time where I had a pity party. Never. I don't recall a time where I just felt sorry for myself or lost hope. There was always hope, and the reason was the fact that I've seen God do so many things for me in the past. So I kept counting those times that I went through this and that, and God was right there through this person or that person. And because of that, I never even had the emotional or psychological thing that I struggled with. However, I have to say that when I got the news, I was already seeing a psychologist for therapy for something that was related to my son's father. So, and I still see him to this day. And you go there, just have a regular conversation, but it wasn't intense therapy as far as my illness is concerned. No.
How about you, Kathy? Do you have anything to add?
What was his?
Oh, the question, how did you cope with the difficulty of having end-stage renal disease and being sick and dialysis?
My family, my church family, and number one reason was because I have God in my life. And without him, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
I would also like to add too, I think it's very common for people who are going through end-stage renal disease, chronic illness, to experience symptoms of depression, anxiety, mood issues. It's normal to have good days, bad days, but if you are a transplant patient, you have transplant psychologists available to help you. So you can reach out to your team, ask to speak to one of the psychologists. At least we have two psychologists at Fredert to be able to help support you through all of that, because we recognize it is a very typical struggle.
Here's a question from out in the world for Jeff and Karen. What was the most difficult part of this, the difficult thing about the screening process?
The most difficult thing about the screening process? For me, I wish it would have gone quicker. It took 7 months from the time that I said I would do it till the time the surgery happened. And we moved everything as quick as we could. As soon as they said, okay, we're clear to do the next step, come in and get an MRI or whatever it was they were all doing. But it was not a difficult process for me anyway.
I found it to be a pretty humbling experience. As I said, I had a bit of a blood pressure issue at one time, and so I had to wear a 24-hour blood pressure cuff, and I had to go walk around and do my daily life on a Saturday all day long with this thing going off every 20 minutes. I went to my kid's band concert with this thing going off and recording my blood pressure, and it was nerve-wracking, and you're never sure if it's working right. And then the first one, the first 24-hour period, the results were sort of inconclusive. Some of the readings were high, and then it didn't really register, and so we had to repeat it again. The second time, the numbers looked fabulous. And I will add that I went for a 2-mile run and really watched my sodium that week, and the numbers were much better. So that first 8-hour day of testing, you're tired. I mean, they're testing. And actually, it was really cool, though. You get to learn what your state of health is as a donor. Absolutely no charge to you. You're getting I had an echocardiogram and I mean, all the kinds of tests of my kidney function with nuclear medicine test and a stress test and just kind of cool tests that I thought professionally were really cool.
15 vials of blood.
Lots of blood. But it was really, if I had a health problem, like they could have potentially saved my life if they had discovered something that I didn't know about. No charge to me at all. So I got to go into it knowing I'm in a very good, acceptable state of health and I can do this in good confidence. So yeah, but it was humiliating. It was a little bit humbling, but it was also really worth it. And professionally, it was really cool to just kind of see things from the other side as a patient rather than a provider.
I have a question. You said it's all in an 8-hour day, and you're saying 7 months. Do they do a lot of that testing like all at once, or is that something you have to wait and come back and wait and come back and you know what I mean, like do all the different? Because I know there's a lot involved to do like the heart test and the blood test and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Can you get?
They tried to do it all as much as they could schedule in one day, but then everybody meets and then they've got questions and they want to follow up on this or that, and so then they make you come in for more tests. It just depends on what issues you might have as a donor.
Yeah, everybody's experience is a little bit different. It is also based on what the donor schedule is like. If possible, we try to get as much done in one day as possible, and it is a really long day, but we have donors coming from halfway across the country sometimes, so it makes it easier just so that way, boom, we can get it all done. But there are times, if there are things that need to be remonitored, like a blood pressure cuff or extra testing, the team does their due diligence to make sure that when they approve a donor that they feel confident there are no health risks or as minimal as possible. So sometimes that requires ongoing testing or screening or things get delayed. So it's a little different for everybody.
I just think that would be a good benefit. Like if I was to donate, be like, okay, you can get 8 tests done in one day. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Karen has a really good saying. Is that if you can say that? When you say they tell you their job is tell you that
yes.
you don't qualify.
The way I looked at it, and I really believe this is true, the donors, the transplant team, their job is, I'm going in there and I want to donate a kidney to Monica. Their job is to figure out why I shouldn't. And believe me, that's a benefit to me because they don't want me to put my life at undue risk. And they also want to make sure that I'm not feeling pressured. And in fact, Dr. Osachik said to me, even the day before surgery, I talked to her the week before surgery, she said, you can still change your mind. You could change your mind up until the time they put you out. I wasn't going to do that, but it's, they are really, really careful about donor rights.
I actually had one donor I saw in the last week tell me, I think you're trying to convince me not to donate. And no, my job is to make sure you're truly confident in your decision to donate. And if I have to tell you all these risks to make sure you're still comfortable with the level of risk, that's what, as a social worker, that's what I do.
Yeah, and they ask very someone's pressuring you, right?
Well, yeah, they want to make sure that you're not pressuring or no exchange of money or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that the 7-month period, the biggest part of that was them making sure that I was sure. And I knew I was sure. That's why I just wanted to go quickly.
I think that maybe like the benefits should be more implicated first on the why not to. That might be a little bit more, for somebody that's wanting to donate, not feel so discouraged.
And my people said that, you know, it's making sure like, no, that's a life-changing decision. But
I think you get both. You hear a lot of, I mean, you know the positives, but I think they really, I think, do a very good job of making sure that you are really, really thoroughly educated. You know exactly what you're getting into, and there's not that everything can be predicted, but that you really can be confident that you're making a good decision that's not going to be an undue risk to yourself. And if they have any doubts about that, then they will just say, sorry, that you're not
There's one more question.
The first step and for potential donor would be contact the transplant center, is that correct?
Yes.
And where are you listed?
Did you get, because I know the PowerPoint is nowhere up, not up here anymore, but if you got, it's on the last page if you got the handouts. That we put the website to all 3 transplant centers. For Freighter, yes it is.
So if you didn't get a handout, we will have this on our website, so you can download the handout. I think we had a few more guests than we anticipated tonight. So, but all 3 transplant centers are on the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin website. And then this PowerPoint will also be there.
So, and then I just put it up again. All right, one more question?
One of the things kept coming up from the recipients was dialysis. What are the challenges being on dialysis? Because I once read where I think 20% of people just say, hey, forget it. I want to go through this, which I put the kidney issue. What was some of the biggest challenge I found on dialysis?
The biggest challenge is that mostly had to do with the technicians. Some of them really become the new, you have to build that relationship with the patient. Then you know the patient. So you go there and get poked 3-4 times before they get it right. I remember 2 experiences. One was that a technician came and hooked me up, but apparently she went too deeper because mine was what they call very superficial, because the vein was just right here. So you have to just poke a little bit. But she went deep. So when the blood was coming out of me, going to the machine and coming back, it started coming to my tissue. And I started screaming. So she came, and when she came, she was afraid. So she was willing to risk me get hurt than report that she's done this. And later on, I just told her, unhook me, and I insisted, and then and of course, 2 days later, she had to quit before anything else. So that was one. Technician not just being really sensitive, and sometimes they're very tired. They've been standing for 4 hours, 10 hours. Anybody said, I understood. But the other thing is, then one day, they were training someone, and I was one of those kind of at risk patient, because I will bleed for a long time. So this person came and hooked me, and then she didn't connect it right, and then she just left. And I'd gone to sleep, because you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get ready to be a dialyst by 5, and so I'm sleeping. And someone is walking from there, and she saw a pool of blood under my chair. Apparently, so the blood was coming back. Instead of coming back to my body, it was getting on the floor. So it was just, people have to be really, really careful. And it was different when I went to my home country. You have doctors in the same room and the nurses in the same room. So for 1 month, I didn't have any problem. And I came back, the first day I came here, I had a problem. So to be honest, every morning I wake up, I'm driving, going to dialysis. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen today. I don't know what's going to happen today. And then, but I hung in there, and thank God I got to get the kidney. But that was just really the challenge that I had. It was more from the dialysis technician.
All right. I think we need to wrap up, but we're available if you have any questions offline. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank everybody who joined us online. Thank you to our panelists for all of your expertise that you shared with us.
So I want to thank everyone for coming. Those of you in the room, if you wouldn't mind taking a few moments to fill out your evaluation, you can certainly mix and mingle. Perhaps our panel can stay for a few minutes for some informal conversation. I know Allison can. For those of you online, you'll receive a survey if you could give us your feedback. But thank you all for coming tonight. Good job.
This started.
What happens if we're in an accident and the kidney is damaged?
This started at 6.
Yes.
I
It's burning.
remember that